Hello, it's Catherine here, bringing you the daily devotion, TORIANA's daily devotion. So, it's been 40 days since we remember him dying on the cross and rising again from the dead. And there were 8 significant appearances that he had before his disciples. So, the first was Mary Magdalene, who was in despair at the tomb. Wondering where had they taken her Jesus, and then he appears to her, and then she realizes his teacher, and then to the woman he appears to them and it says, "Okay, go and tell the disciples I'm alive, I've risen," and then rush back to tell the disciples, and of course the disciples are like, "No, it can't be," and then they run to see the tomb and that it's empty. And then when else did Jesus appear to his disciples? Well, the next time he appeared to them was in the room where they were hiding, and it was only to the 10. Thomas wasn't there, and he showed them his hands, and they were like, "Wow, Jesus is alive." And of course they told Thomas, and Thomas said, "No, no, no, I won't believe until I can put my fingers in his sides and his hands." And of course Jesus does reappear when Thomas is there. And then he says, "Come, Thomas, put your hands in my side." And at that time, he says, "You believe because you have seen, but blessed are those who have not seen me but still believe." So when else did Jesus appear to his disciples? It was also to the men going to Emmaus. They were walking along, and then Jesus was walking with them, and they were telling him, "Don't you know that Jesus disappeared, and now he's reappeared?" And then he had communion with them, and they broke bread, and then their eyes were opened. So those are some of the times that Jesus appeared to his disciples. But there was another time which we've spoken about when Jesus appeared to the disciples, and that's when they were fishing. And it was a time to restore Peter, and he was cooking breakfast for them on the beach, and Peter jumped out the boat and rushed to his teacher, and then they were talking, and he fed them breakfast, and he said to Peter, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Well, feed my sheep." And then he asked him a second time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Well, then feed my lambs." And the third time, "Peter, do you love me?" He said, "Jesus, you know I love you." And Jesus was trying to bring up where he denied him 3 times, so he's asking him 3 times. And then he says, "Feed my sheep." And it's interesting because it's on Peter that the church is built. And so those are the times that Jesus appears. But there were 2 other occasions where he appears. And if we read in Acts 1, and I don't think many people realize that in Acts 1 there's an appearance. And what does he say to his disciples? So when they had come together, so there was more than about 500 disciples, they asked him, "Lord, will you at this time restore the kingdom of Israel?" So now Jesus is risen, he's back, so they think, okay, he's going to be with us forever. And he said to them, "It is not for you to know the times or the seasons that the Father has fixed his own authority, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." And when he had said these things, so they were looking on, he was lifted up into a cloud and took him out of their sight. And while they were gazing into heaven, as he went, behold, 2 men stood by them in white robes and said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the heaven? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven." And before that time of him being lifted up, ascending into heaven, he also sat with his disciples, and he said, "I want you to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." It's Matthew 28. So these were his final 2 appearances. And what's significant here is that for the disciples, they thought he was going to physically stay with them, but in earlier scriptures, he tried to explain to them before he died on the cross, if I don't ascend into heaven, I can't send the Holy Spirit, the helper, that will be a seal on each of you. And I don't know about you, but I can't do without the guidance of the Holy Spirit. The person of the Holy Spirit is part of the Trinity, but is a very significant part of our lives. And I don't think we realize that. So when we commit our lives to Jesus, we are sealed with the Holy Spirit. And it's the Holy Spirit that works in our hearts. It convicts us if we've maybe said something wrong or done something wrong. You know that the Holy Spirit's speaking in your heart and saying, well, you better go and say sorry. Or often before communion, I know in my spirit when I must say sorry to Robert, my husband, or my children, or somebody else, or even to Jesus if I feel I haven't spent enough time with him. All those parts in our hearts is the Holy Spirit speaking to our hearts and working in us and molding us and shaping us and guiding us in the calling to make disciples of all nations. So as you remember Ascension Day, and as you remember Jesus ascending, never forget that if he didn't ascend, we wouldn't have received the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is such a vital part of our lives and my life. And I'm thankful to God the Father for sending the Son, and I'm thankful to the Son for sending us the Holy Spirit. And I'm just thankful that he is our hope, and we're not alone. He's with us to guide us in every situation.